Recording in progress.
All right. So Yoso's theory of cultural wealth. I think many of you, sorry, the chat window is blocking my screen. Oh, all of you. Yeah, congratulations. Got this correctly. 6 forms of capitals. Students of color experience in college and not from a deficit perspective, right? Obviously. And the Yoso's theory, we did talk about Bourdieu's cultural capital, social capital, and that's like the basic foundation of how those who remain in power, like those elites, would perpetuate the status quo. But then again, Yoso came up and said, but minorities do use their own navigation of power or familiar, like a family resources to navigate, right? So Yoso did present this theory. However, the doctoral students and going to be the doctoral candidates need to balance the theories. There is no one size fits all. That's why we're introducing many theories to you, because there is no one size fits all. So I would love for you, when you are writing or when you are coming up with your own research design, to maybe like present both sides of the theory. So Yoso, okay, and also Bourdieu, right there, so that you present both sides and say, okay, this is what Yoso says, but Yoso is highlighting the navigational capitals and other capitals that minorities and the students of power use. But Bourdieu did talk about different capitals that are being used to perpetuate the status quo. Okay, but it might be perceived as coming from a deficit perspective. That's why the Yoso's theory of the theory came up in response to that. So I would love for you to keep a balance among a variety of different theories in given theme, so that you are considering different theories to come up with something that is more backed up with various resources to validate what you're saying. Okay. All right. Thank you. Sorry, I don't know what happened to my chat, but I just saw the new chats come up, and I realized these are the chats that you wrote previously. And Anthony, you said building intellectual and physical skills in interpersonal relationships. Okay, this is from the other theory, right? So this is 7 vectors, I believe. Samarine, the 7 vectors. Yes, we talked about that. And Anthony, you also said because he wanted to show that student development is not only about academics, they grow emotionally, socially, and morally. Yes. Okay. So Liz, you said Perry's intellectual growth as a journey, stages duality, okay, black and white. Knowledge comes from authority figures, multiplicity, different opinions and viewpoints. All opinions are valued, just like what we said. Everyone is entitled to their opinion, relativism, why an opinion is held, why, and whether or not that it is more validated than others, and things like that, a commitment to relativism. And
Recording in
criticisms of
progress.
first and second wave student development theories. I think you got you got the how I give you answers, right? So this is not to test you, this is for like an educational purpose. So all of the above. Okay, lack of intersectionality, development as a linear process, and ignoring systems empowering minoritized experience. And we did talk about fourth wave last week. We ended up our class mentioning the fourth wave, and I did post some resources around fourth wave, which I think is pretty new, and I was not able to find like a good summary article that talked about the fourth wave. So if you ever write about fourth wave, you're gonna be your work is gonna be very innovative. Okay. So something for you to think about, right? So you can talk about that fourth wave, and because fourth wave does talk about some the two things. Okay, I know that some scholars are talking about fourth wave already, but some they would be talking about AI as something that would support the student development or not, okay, or somewhere in the middle. So it could change how students develop, right? That's something that we don't know yet because there's not very much research on that field yet. But we are interested, those of us who are interested in student development theories, to look at AI as a tool, AI as a game changer sometimes to, in this whole world of student development, and also how the critical theories and critical race theories and all of and intersectionality, like the third wave theories, are applicable in practice. That's something that fourth wave theorists are interested in a most general sense. Okay. All right, great. No questions. I'm going to move on. Oh no. Sorry, I forgot that I had added this question. I kind of like stole your thunder, right? Yeah, I mean, there's no right or wrong answer. Like I said, you can write about fourth wave, and you can argue that we should talk about dismantling oppression. I think that should be included, and how we can do that in practice. I know sometimes, according to some theories, that they say that it's really not possible until that we, disrupt the system, yeah, the whole system. How do we do that? Okay. And if we don't do that, it's going to be tokenism, and it's just, it's really hard. But we want to do that. How do we disrupt the system? And that might be something that the fourth wave theorists might be interested in exploring further on, right? And new digital space, we talked about that already. And application oriented, we talked about that already. Implementations and advocate for social change. How do we do that? That could be like the theme or the research questions or some of the topics that we want to include in the training materials. And if you want to be more applicable, and if you want to have like a strong theory on that, okay, that's something for you, the future researchers, to do. Laura, Erin, yay, Dana, Chris. All right. Thank you, everyone, for participating so far. I hope this was helpful for you to remember what we talked about. I didn't include everything, obviously, but I did not include, what came after week 7, but does anyone remember some of the main highlights from the discussion we had about racial identity development and ethnic identity development? And we did also talk about gender, and we did talk about what else? We talked about one of the most important theory. in week 10? Who can tell me what that is? Self-authorship. Yes. To talk about self-authorship. Thank you. So what do you remember? Let's talk about racial and ethnic identity development. What do you remember from that week's discussion? Or any of the previous week's discussion that that you wanted to address further, something you remember, something that you resonate with, something you had a question about. Why don't we do this? I'm going to put you in a breakout, okay? So I'll be giving you just, a few minutes for you to just bounce off your ideas. Now we're reflecting on our discussions from week 1 to week 11. So if you remember anything in particular that really you resonate with, or something that you had questions about, something that you see like a common themes across all the discussions and theories, or what do you think that the theories that you've learned in this course are lacking? Okay, that could be the possible gap that you can address that together, because it could be a potential like a research topic too. So, what are some of the things that you understand or you realize now that we have talked about many theories? So I'm going to be giving you, a few minutes and enough time for you to bounce off ideas, and then we're going to come together and share your ideas in a whole group. All right. So let me do that. And I'm going to be giving you a smaller group, so hopefully you have more time to chat. Let's see. Oh, not this. Recreate. Maybe this. Okay, might say. Okay, one group will have 2 people, and rest of you have 3 people in a group. Just about 10 minutes or so.
What's up, Ernest?
What's up, Anthony? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can, loud and clear.
Okay, I'm just checking because my laptop has been giving me trouble since my 5 p.m. class. So I've been joining in and out. I feel like I did not play that game at all because I was just trying to log back in.
Indeed. So, what are we supposed to be talking about right now?
I think she's wanting us to talk about our discussions from the first 10 or 7 or 10 weeks, something like that. Like something that stuck out to you. It sounded like that's what I got before my computer started lagging on her voice, and I couldn't make out what she was saying at the tail end. But that's what I heard, was just anything that stuck out to you. It sounded like she wanted us to talk about self-authorship, but then no one was talking. But I don't know if someone did talk and I just missed it.
Okay, let me pull up my notes.
I'm looking through my notes, and I'm gonna be lazy and say Schlossberg, only because that was our panel and discussion assignment that America, Submarine and I did and knocked it out. Oh no, Liz. It was me, Submarine, and Liz. But I liked it because I also used it in my paper, my positionality paper. That was one of the theories that I used, and I just really liked that it was a square, so it was symmetrical because there was 4 stages, and just like we were talking about in some of the Kahoot right now, a lot of these theorists started off being linear in stage, but then realized that people could have these reflexive, life changes that put them in an area that's not necessarily like step number 2 or part B. It's like you can go through and make like alphabet soup with these stages if we had like that many, as many as the alphabet. Like you can make words, it's almost like a language that they were using to describe life experiences, but in a stage that the first wave people were just like, nope, A to Z, no skipping. So that's sort of what stuck out to me the most. Because then from that point on, that wave, they all started to be like that.
I think, there's so much stuff in the readings. I do like the self-authorship when they were talking about the 3 dimensions of it, and like how this applies to me, like how I have a really hard time transitioning from being an entrepreneur back to a student, man. And then also me dealing with the structural military structure versus how not structured education was. But then I now I understand it because I know beyond reasonable doubt that learning is not linear. It kind of has like you have to be like a toolbox. That's the best way that I can put it. What I have learned. Educators have to be like a toolbox because you can't just approach everything with a hammer. You have to kind of have a little bit of everything because you're more than just an educator. You're like a counselor. You're a mental health provider. You have to have empathy, and then everybody doesn't learn the same. So, and how it applies to self-authorship to me, I think, I'm learning that education is more self-identity and how it applies to learning as well. So, I have a greater appreciation for that because this class really challenged me for real because, I was extremely uncomfortable submitting my papers just because I felt like I was pushed from an intellectual perspective to think, okay, why does this apply to this? Right? Don't just give me a quote and just say, put it there. How does interpersonal dimensions apply to who I am? So, I think from my perspective, this is one of the most challenging, but my favorite class so far.
Glad to hear that.
And Anthony, that's why I feel like we did well with Liz, because of a lot of the stuff that you mentioned and how we applied our week's theory on Schlossberg, Ioso, and a few other different theorists with the military, because what you said at the beginning is so applicable to my life because of the veteran students I serve. Like, it's hard for them to transition out of military life back into civilian life. So when Liz brought that up, I was like, that we have to do that. Like, that we had other options to choose from, but the structural frame in Bowman and Deal is my life. I live in that frame. I despise the other frames. I can tolerate some more than others, but like, and I know that the whole idea of Bowman and Deal's 4 frames, which again is like the 4 stages from Schlossberg, that connected for me was some of them anchor each other differently at different points in time. And that's why I liked that once the wave really started that these stages aren't linear, look how many of the other theorists followed suit. Even though the previous wave was absolutely linear. And you have to admit, like, they're not wrong, because at that point in time, in that development of theory, time is linear. So we live forward regardless of the experience of other people. Humanity itself is moving forward. You know what I mean? And so that is exactly how a veteran exits or enters military life. You know what I mean? And so that was really powerful
Yes.
that you shared that. So thank you for that.
I'll tell you another thing too. Like, you know, the best way that I could describe it is like my military experience shaped me because I was in for 20 years. It's like, and that fits into business because business is kind of structured because I'm an entrepreneur now. But what I can say is that I can't continue to think outside of the box if I keep putting myself in one linear way of learning, right? You can't think outside of the box if you continue to put yourself in one. So how I decide on how those experiences fit into my academic and professional personal identity is directly correlated to self-authorship because it describes like, my developmental capacity to internally define what what beliefs that I have and apply it and be able to communicate it to students based off my perspective, but then also have the active listening to be able to shift from that type of dependence on authority towards a different identity by how education is shaping the way that I think. I actually think that I'm a better business owner now from listening to educators.
Well,
Like the way that I think, because I'm A and B. And the way that what I have learned from y'all, I've been applying this to my business, and the way that I communicate has been received better.
that's awesome, man. That is one of my favorite reasons I feel like I'll always work in education, because there's multiple disciplines. Like, I love business. My mom has a business associates and a business minor from UC San Diego. My sister's taking business classes. You know what I mean? Like, actively have all of these different students on my caseload that keep me fresh in what's happening in these various disciplines. And it has been helpful in this class to go from doing it because you need to analyzing what is being asked of you. And that's what you're doing, but in business, right? I'm just in education, but think of all the other people who aren't, because we have people in our cohort who aren't. And so in my master's program, we had people in nonprofits, government, because even though it was educational leadership, they broke it up into a flexibility enough program that it could be applied in all of these different areas. So it's almost like an awakening to a language that you knew, but you understand differently now.
Yeah, this was good, man. How are you doing with your with navigating through dealing with school? Because I know you faced some challenges. How's that going?
It's been going, but I mean, I feel like I am excited for this next couple weeks of a break. Um, well, just because school, the academic year is starting for me next week, but student services already started working this week. And then I was in Las Vegas last week for the union that I'm a part of for school or for my job. So it's like my life is just interconnected, but like I've been so busy, like it's been nice to just look forward to a 2 week break, but I am a little sad because I enjoyed both of my classes. My 5 o'clock class with David Cash on human resource management and workforce theory is pretty cool, but I love combining these two classes together because they're so applicable. It's all development. It's not just student development, because we're students to get a degree, to get a job. So they all connect. And so that's been nice to connect those two classes and kind of bounce back and forth with what they were saying. It was a good mix. How was the other class?
That's It was good. It was unorganized because it was a class that we didn't. It was, they're
Recording in
back, everyone.
progress.
I hope this was a good time for you to bounce back some ideas you have on your mind about, reminiscing some of the discussions we've had previously. So what stands out to you? And what's on your mind?
I think this is the most application-based course I've taken thus far, and I'm like $65,000 in. And I appreciate that every week I can take this to work and educate my team to give them, foundational support and also to support their thoughts, ideas, and emotions around student development. But my little course evaluation thing is literally about to say that. Literally. And the way you facilitated this course and the discussions, just having time for discussions, is so meaningful to me. And I shared the disability. I've never talked in the context of ability around student development, and I really appreciate that.
Yeah, I really believe what we brought to the table. Like some of you brought, your experience and perspectives based on your, disability and ability status and your veteran status and your non-binary gender and ethnic minority status and all of that. And you brought your perspectives into our topic, and also you shared how it could be applicable or not. We did talk about some possible ways to make it happen in higher education that we serve. So thank you. I appreciate all of you. I mean, this is not me. I think some weeks I did not talk all much, and it was all you and discussion leaders. So I was really glad that it was you who talked about all of these, and I just pointed out a few main things, and that was my role. So thank you for that. Anyone else? Some high-level reflections or some specific things that you remember, or what are some of the things that you wish you wanted to learn more about, but the research is not there yet?
More fourth wave.
We don't have fourth wave yet. I did share some, but that's a new era, and that's a new area that you can all pay attention to in your own research or in your practice. And maybe that could be a title for your presentation when you're out in the field as doctors. I think then that's going to be a new contribution. People will be asking you questions about, okay, what is this fourth wave? And in order for you to talk about that, you really have to know the first, second, and third waves theories. So that's why that we have to lay a good, strong foundation for you to do that work. Okay. Thank you, Christopher, for that. Anyone else? Any other reflections on any other theories or groups of theories or the high-level reflection?
I just want to add, I think, with transformation of AI, it's going to drastically reduce information asymmetry in higher ed, where previously in prior generations, having access to knowledge and elite education systems and networks had better access to information and specialized tools. Going to Harvard, Yale is going to make a drastic difference in someone's life. But now this prestige and access is no longer the same thing. So as the information access, the advantage decreases with the use of AI, where a common folk, a 5-year-old can access the same information and knowledge as a 35-year-old from Harvard. That the asymmetry of information and learning curve is going to be reduced. So that education prestige may be no longer the same as before. So someone going to community college can learn at the same pace and learn the same material as someone that goes to Harvard. And that's why I think even standardized testing these days has been reduced, where we can no longer judge someone's learning aptitude based on what score they get on the ACT or SAT. It has to be a different way to judge how someone is better than an other candidate, in a different manner than before.
Mm-hmm. So maybe there could be a new vectors that we need to include to what Chickering is saying. So you can say this is what Chickering talked about, in the publication year. And with the advent of AI and AI use, now we know that there are other vectors that need to be included, or we need to replace some of the vectors with the new ones based on, the new skills that they need to acquire. So no longer, for them to just memorize the main, or the key ideas or theories, and for them to just elevate their status as intellectuals, right? Because you can easily access that information through AI and internet and now, but maybe like the way that you would be analyzing and picking the most valuable information, or I don't know what that could be because we don't know much about the role of AI in higher education yet, but that could be something in question that we should keep in mind. Ernest, you have a question, your hand up.
Can people hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. So I absolutely agree, Peng, but I just went to the California School Employee Association state conference, and it was pretty interesting because AI was like on every resolution. And it was for various different reasons, but the main reason was to, one, modernize the way that we vote for better accountability. And they voted it down. I was a no. I said, yes, we need to modernize, but they complained money and physical location, which are arguably like a necessity with state budgets. I get that. But the other thing was workforce replacement. So your comments that some people who are going to college at a community college might get the same access to learning with AI as to someone who goes to Harvard, or even like how the UC system's they let the SATs go, right? Now they want to bring them back because math scores are down, right? So there's all of these different implications to what's happening with AI, but the workforce doesn't realize that you need money to access the internet. So to speak to what you're saying, what's happening also with AI is in the workforce, we're losing jobs. In the hotel I stayed at, on every floor, there was a vacuum cleaner that was running by itself. I purposefully went and recorded myself around it because the technology recognizes people and it will stop. And then if you wait long enough, it'll go around you. That used to be a custodian. That used to be a housekeeper. That used to be whatever you want to label the hospitality worker. And now it's also the workforce. So if people can't get jobs anymore, I don't really think that they're going to be able to afford to go to college, whether Harvard or a community college, right? So this is a very big area that I feel like we can't escape. It's literally, I mean, you even mentioned it today, Dr. Min, you know what I mean? And so it's constantly everywhere. And I think it's interesting you brought up education, but I just want to remind people that as we prepare for the workforce, I know we're in it already, but with this degree that we have, how we might not even be able to get jobs.
Well, I'm going to say from the research perspective that it'd be interesting to know, to see with the AI, how AI could also perpetuate the status quo. Let's look at it from that lens. And I think there will be many areas where the power is maintained and perpetuated because of the use of AI. And in some areas, of course, AI will liberate, maybe like access to certain basic information or knowledge. I think so. It's already happening, but I think there will be forces or power, those who want to retain their powers, and it's going to be interesting, and also not just interesting, but it's, if you think about it, it's devastating. But looking at it from the theory lenses and research lenses, and I think it's an important topic for us to think about. Dana, you have your hand up.
Yes, it's really just to give a shout out to Ernest just for bringing that up, because so it's no surprise right now I am interviewing for different leadership roles. But I will tell you this, it's been a while since I've done it, and AI has taken over. I will tell you the interviews that I've gone on, they're like third, fourth, fifth round. First and second round are like videos. So you're answering questions and recording yourself. They're using AI to actually screen you, but you can't use AI for your cover letters or your CVs or your resume. So it is just challenging. I'm thankful I'm employed. However, it is, to go off of what Ernest is saying, I don't really know where we're going to be once we actually do graduate. Um, is it better just to stay? Well, I know for me, I'm not staying in my role. I have to get back to California. But outside of that, is it just better to stay where you are, ride this out? Or is it AI is just kind of progressing at this point, and we just have to not work against it, work with it? I think these are the type of things that we should also be learning in these courses in the program. No shade to the School of Education here, but I do think there should be curriculum available for us to prepare.
Yes, thank you, Dana. America, you have your hand up. Take it away.
Yeah, I think just another like question to think about in terms of AI also is like the I can't say the word, consolidation consolidation of wealth, right? And so, I mean, I feel like we see this all the time, right? Like Canva was free for the longest time, and then all of a sudden it's like, no, you got to pay for this, now you got to pay for that. So, is there also like a reliance being developed with a lot of these like tools, right? Um, and like you have to pay to like protect your data with some of these apps as well. So I think, kind of to Dr. Min's point and, Ernest and other colleagues is, just there's a lot of questions there and not necessarily anti-AI, but also critical of it. So just want to raise that, and not to mention the environmental factors.
So I'm compelled to share my recent research with you. I'll put it on the announcement. I haven't really turned it into like a publication yet, but I was able to talk about it at different conferences. The title of my recent research is how international college students use AI, okay, in their academic or social or their personal use. So that's my team and I, we interviewed I think 16 students, international students in a higher ed, and then the results were surprising. And some of them already realized that there is a digital divide for some of them who can afford to pay the $20 extra, for example, for ChatGPT, like better version, right? Versus those who are not able to afford to pay for that service and a premium service. And there's like a divide, and there's like a people who have access to that information, and they do talk about other things, and then we came up with some findings. So if you are free and want to think about and talk about or with me, you can do that too later on if you're interested in talking about my research. But we're more than welcome to, it's really short, not really long, findings that we came up with, and I put it on an announcement in case you want to read it for more. Okay, we'll do that. Okay. So someone like me, I'm really interested in the student development with AI, and it's going to be like the new wave, the fourth wave that we all are. We are all like interested in like learning, like adding more literature to the field. Okay. Yeah, you're saying that's very interesting, non-traditional student. Also, like I'm interested in online learning too, and how that would shape the development of students too. The COVID years, that was like popular research topic for my former students in doctoral levels, a couple years ago, because it was really real, like for them, COVID and the impact of COVID for the higher ed. Samreen, go ahead, take it away.
Yeah, so I guess one of my key takeaways was really just focusing on the qualitative research, that was really presented in many of the papers that we read through. And that's been really interesting for me, especially because I'm in accounting and I was financial auditor. So I was very used to the quantitative big data that usually is used in that particular environment for drawing conclusions. And, I think one of the things that's really kind of stood out to me in the theories was really the self-authorship and how that kind of relates to how we use our positionality and to kind of tell our own stories, right? Have like our own internal meaning making and how we do that reflection of how we make decisions and our biases and our assumptions. And even throughout this conversation, we're kind of talking about, well, what's going to happen with AI, right? Like we're kind of like speculating, right? What would happen to the workforce? And one of the key characteristics is the adaptability. So I think it's kind of interesting to kind of like even tie in this conversation with that self-authorship, because even as doctoral students, like we're all continuing to learn and evolve, right? And as we kind of think about how we then apply that, that would be part of our scholar practitioner, right? Because then we're thinking about how do we then tell those stories to others, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. How do we tell the stories convincingly? And qualitative researchers do that. And in order to make your stories convincing, you would need to make your data or your quotations really concrete and back it up with what others have done in a field, like by citing their sources and literatures, and so that's wonderful. Thank you, Samreen, for that. And yeah, qualitative research, student development is not just about numbers, but also like listening to their stories in practice too, right? So that's important. Thank you, thank you. And self-authorship, as much as we like it, and we recognize the limitations of self-authorship too, right? And how it does not really take into consideration the bigger world that surrounds self individuals, right? Maybe like having the power and having equity issues not really addressed in self. And we're sometimes blaming on students for not having the grit or not having the resilience to plow through, but it's also internal and external, and that we should not forget about external factors. And so it's the same for all theories. I mean, I just want you to remember there is no one size fits all, and there is no perfect theory. There are always positives, contributions that they make, but then again, there are limitations. So that's why we use a variety of different theories to understand and to try to use lenses that are more evidence-based, and also recognize some of the other theories that are not addressed specifically, but you do mention it to triangulate or try to validate from multiple different lenses. Okay. So hopefully this course provided you with the first step, because there are a lot other theories, and this is like some foundational introductions. So for you to delve into some of the main theories and create and develop your own theories based on your own research. Okay. All right, we're going to take a break, and I'm going to give you an extended break until 9:45 for you to get to do the course evaluation, right? Please do that and also take a break, and hopefully it doesn't take too much time for you to fill it out. But please do that because I was told to give you the class time to do that. And I'll call everyone back into the room at around 9:45, and we'll start chatting about your positionality paper presentations. Okay, I'll see you back in 15 minutes. Everybody, welcome back. All right, so we're going to share your positionality paper and just, I asked you to prepare a visual if you can. So when you go to the breakout session, and you're going to be having 3 or 4 members in a group all together. So I'm going to be asking one person to be the timekeeper. Everyone gets about 5 minutes and a few more minutes if you need to discuss or ask each other questions. And then so total like 7 or 8 minutes per person. And then we're going to come together and wrap it up together. So let's see. Okay. Okay.
Dr. Min, will we
Yep.
be able to share screen in the breakout rooms?
Yes, you can. In a breakout, you can do anything,
Okay.
even though you're not a host. If not, then I'm gonna walk around. I'm gonna, hop around to see if everyone's is able to do that. Okay. All right. Room number 1. America, can you be the timekeeper? Room 2. Christopher, can you be the timekeeper? I'm just reading off the first one I see in a breakout. Group number 3, Peng, could you be the timekeeper? Room number 4, Dana, could you be the timekeeper? Room number 5, Erin, can you be the timekeeper? And I'm gonna open our rooms for you to do that.
Hey, everybody. You already know it's the VIP room. We don't have to discuss that.
Why did you know I was going to say that?
You've seen the velvet rope when you join. Yeah. It's already VIP. Yeah, I'm so over it. I'm so fucking over it. Like, I'm over it.
Yeah.
Have a good time.
It was great. Honestly, I learned a lot.
I think I learned a lot about myself too.
I was going to say that too. I learned so much about myself.
Which is kind of the purpose of the doctoral program. Locally.
Is it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because you got to recognize your biases before you get into your dissertation. Your perspectives, your how your life experiences frame your research.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So if you use live people in your dissertation, you go to IRB, they're going to ask how you're, who you are and how you are.
They ask you that?
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Yeah.
interesting.
So yeah, I feel like I learned a lot about myself. But summertime, I don't want to do this again. I just hate life.
We have no choice. We have to do it.
This was so dumb. I don't know why,
Hard.
but I had a good time. But I'm over it. Okay, we got about 5 minutes apiece. Anybody want to start first? Erica, how you doing? You good for me?
Hi, Erica.
Erica's the queen of persistence, honey. Erica be over there persisting, child.
You doing okay, Erica?
Yeah, I can, hold on, I think I can start.
You want to start? Okay. Do we all have slides?
I do.
Yes.
I do. They're just black and white.
Me too.
Okay.
Words.
Yeah, me too.
Sorry, trying to find it.
Ernest, is your internet okay?
Is that were you at Central Valley?
Yes, but my internet's never done this, like ever. And of course, the one day that's the last day of class, I'm like, are you kidding me?
Didn't y'all just get a new data center?
I hope not. No, I don't think they voted it in, but I don't know.
Also, Ernest, you didn't come to class last week. You missed our presentation.
I'm sorry. I was in Las Vegas.
It's fine. We'll recap you later.
It
You
was
guys
for,
see my screen?
yeah.
Yeah, we can see the screen.
All right,
So,
Erica, 5 minutes on the clock.
okay, so for my paper, I focused on predominantly my voice as a leader. So I use intersectionality and I also use self-authorship and then women's way of knowing. And I would just say like my takeaway so far is like my lived experiences are not a barrier, but it's like a source of knowledge. I feel like sometimes for me, like it felt like a barrier, like being a Black woman, first generation and low income, like treading water a little bit. But now, like with all of my experiences, I have like that voice to be an advocate, but also like to like devil's advocate to like being an advocate all the time. It becomes exhausting. So I did also talk about emotional exhaustion and frustration for always being seen as an advocate and always being expected to advocate because now I'm in a space where I just want to work in a like healthy work environment and actually be able to learn something myself instead of feeling like I'm always like a shield. But one thing that I really paid attention to is like my voice in general and how I can use it and stop myself from entering into imposter syndrome.
That's real. Was anything surprising to you? Because it's a lot of reflection. Is there anything that some dots that you connected to how your experience? And I totally get it. Like, as Black women save the world, like, I mean, it's a lot, but in the workplace, yeah, you are expected to kind of be triage for the things that the system should just inherently make room for and understand, and that is exhausting. But any parts of the reflection that surprised you when you kind of overlaid some theory or things that you may have forgotten about?
Mm, I don't think I don't think anything really surprised me within my reflection. I feel like I've been reflecting since I started the program. Um, I feel like maybe in this paper I like express my frustration a little bit more, but then also like I recognize that I'm in a space of like almost in a way of just kind of being like, whatever, what's next? Where in the past I kind of had like that like guilt of not succeeding as a leader. But I'm like, what does that look like? Or what does that even mean? So that's why I like focus on self-authorship and then women's way of knowing are like my main two. And then like just like thinking of all of my intersectionalities and not trying to position them as a barrier instead of just positioning them as a form of like expertise for myself at least. Because I don't like to project my lived experiences onto others.
So some reconciliation.
Yeah.
Yeah. Old friend, I'm trying to. Kudos to you. Yeah, that's big. Reconciliation of positionality is it can be painful because some of us are delusional about it. But, thank you for sharing that. Any other comments, questions, cries of outrage for Erica? All right. Lot of you next. No, I'm just kidding. You don't have to be next. But you want me to go?
Sure, yeah.
Okay.
I can be your timer.
Thank you, friend. Hold on. I don't remember. Hold on. Kits and caboodles. You know, I never played Kahoot before. Now I see why the kids love it so much. That was cute. Okay. So growing up in the South, my uh-oh, wait a minute. That ain't it. Hold on. I I was given a communal identity first as just being Black. And everything that I carried with me in a prideful way and even in a painful way was rooted in my community. And so in my head, I never thought that I just didn't know that. I won't say I didn't know other communities existed because that's how I knew how to survive in other communities. But I just didn't realize how much of that came with me as I grew sea legs out of the community. So mine was basically on um, foraging in two places simultaneously, which is like there's nothing really that I want to let go about my community of origin or roots, but framing it to understand how it shows up from a student development perspective and the work that I do as a leader, educator, advisor, so on and so forth. And there were some truths that I had to confront, which I kind of knew, but those truths were culturally appropriate where I'm from, not so much here in California. And that was some of the reflection that I had to do. So in the center are words that kind of capture what I wrote about. And one of the things that was interesting is my male identity, just accepting that as a social construct. It's important in Black and Brown communities to understand your role and your position. And I didn't realize how that carried into my higher ed career and advising students and kind of carrying those binary gender norms with me as a way of protecting yourself, even as a queer person, leaning to that to find ways to fit into patriarchy. And if you could just find one or two, uh, intersections, then you play to those strengths. And that was something that I didn't really ever think about. I thought that was interesting. That came up for me. I also recognize that because you identify what success is, you define it. So if success doesn't feel like it's working, just redefine it. And that comes to self-authorship and agency. What else? Undoing some of the Christian teachings was tough because if I worked at a higher ed institution back in the South, the underpinnings of the student development is Christian teachings. And so it's the language that we use to communicate positionality and identity building. And coming to California, I felt lost because I had to let all that go and reframe what I understood as identity building. Intersectionality, this course really opened my eyes to what that really meant, which is the power structures and confronting the power structures instead of it being this plus this, or this crosses this. And me zooming out, have an opportunity to zoom out to understand the power structures that confront and conform my identity and positionality was a point of interest. What else? I talked a lot about privacy, how the first 10 years of my career, I never talked about my personal life or being queer because that's not socially acceptable in the South. It's not something we were taught to do. And that was one way to create safety. And so I used to coach my students to that actually about being discreet. And then Gen Z came along and introduced themselves through pronouns. And that felt weird at first because I felt like it was a little too personal. But recognizing that shift, that privacy can be protective, but or silence rather, is not always a weakness. It can be a way to push your agency. So then I have like a comparative chart of then and now, and that's really it. I think the biggest one is the last one, or second to last one, method, coaching students to adapt to oppression versus acknowledge the flaws in the system, to understand like you don't have to accept oppression. Here's ways of being authentic within these systems. Okay, that's all I got.
You're right on the dot.
Fam. I will say, humbling for sure to do a positionality paper.
I like what you said about communal identity, but then also kind of feeling lost in California, having to restart and figure out who you are. I feel like I never had that sense of communal identity because I'm a military baby. So when I came to California, I was just like, in my head, I'm like, okay, it's just a city. And now I'm like, I know who I am, but my career for me is just like, who am I in that one? So I like how you connected that all.
Thank you, friend. I still can't shake it. And every once in a while, I'm like, shit, I need to go home. I need to go do some trail rides. I need to go be with some black cowboys. I need to, it's like every once in a while, parts of my real authentic identity. I'm like, oh, I gotta go home and nourish him. Ernest, I know your signal is not quite, you don't have all the bars. Do you want to just talk about yours?
I love that I don't have all the bars. That's exactly what's happening. But can you hear me?
You're kind of like breaking up a little bit, but I think you're okay.
Okay. So my positionality paper was just my family life as it is now. We have a sponsored mobility pipeline we created in a co-owned home. And everyone has a role to play. So we've created an interdisciplinary familial role for each person. And while doing that, we offer each other equity so that if you can't pay rent, don't worry about it. Focus on school. There's always one or two people going to school at the same time in my house. And that has been able to get myself through school with the support of my parents, starting that off. And then I return the investment by creating like a pendulum program where it's like every time we're with each other, we are providing each other that cultural wealth, navigational wealth through the education system. And so my parents have gone back to school and gotten a bachelor's and a master's degree. My sister's in school finishing. My brother's almost done he is done with his associate's degree program, but he's going to be an EMT. So like we're all taking care of each other so that we can climb the ladder. And that's basically what I talked about, that where I'm using this educational program for me to help support them, but then we're all just sort of creating that social support that we don't get in the reality of the life we live in this country. And so that's pretty much what I wrote about. And it felt easy to me just because I'm rooted in education. I work for education. We're all in some type of program. So I don't know that I learned something new other than how to look at problems very differently through theory and application. That's probably the biggest takeaway that I took from this paper.
Do you coach students from that perspective?
Yes.
Of community and communal sharing. I mean, my agency students teach me a lot about that. Like a lot. Like it's my turn, then it's next person's turn, and so on and so on. I've learned a lot of culture. My cultural IQ coming to California has expanded. But any ways that you identify how that could be not limiting to some students, because not everybody has family or can build, communal spaces. Also, it sounds like you're living in sovereignty, which is like the ultimate, live above the systems. Yeah, we don't talk about that enough. But how does it show up in your advisement and your coaching with your students, your positionality?
I like that you brought up that not everybody has the privilege, because having a family is privilege. And I feel like I learned that early on in college, but the older you get, the more you feel it when you see students who don't have anybody. So thank you for bringing that up, because that's a big reason why it's like you see lots of TV shows where people go off. My wife is in this stint of Grey's Anatomy, and I look at that house on that television show and look at how many people have gone through that house. The house is the structural support system that people needed to get through education, medical residency, education, and they're helping other people in return. So that's how I coach my students. That's how I feel like I retain them the most. It's find who you can help, but don't be afraid to ask for help, but don't forget to build help.
Well, that's key. You can build a dissertation on that, building help. A framework. Yeah. Any final reflections, Cosby Bowery, before we turn our cameras off and stare at the corner or scroll our social media until it's time to return? Well, I must say, I have enjoyed this cohort so much, and I hope to see you. I don't know. I feel like I need a break. Y'all need a break from me in the fall. I don't know. Is it like Tuesday, Thursday?
Hey, I haven't gone yet.
Oh, you haven't? I'm so sorry, friend. My bad.
It's
Oh,
okay.
forgive me. I am so delusionally tired. Let me reset. Let me know when you're ready.
I'm ready. Okay, I'll go fast. Okay, so it wasn't as easy for me, like how Ernest was saying, it was a bit easy for him. I don't really think about myself too much, and like that's probably some unearthed childhood trauma or something, but it was really difficult for me. So I actually looked up our 700, like in Hinga, we wrote about a little bit about our positionality early on in our doctoral journey. And so I pulled that up, and then I realized that wasn't helpful because I've grown a lot, which was very nice for me to see. So I did pick these three social identities, and they were highly influenced by actually Christopher, your and Erica's presentation. That week 9 was very impactful for me. I downloaded your presentation, your handout as well, but there were some key moments in your presentation that just prompted, and especially Erica, your breakout session that you led, it really like prompted some unearthed memories of that I had. And so for me, one of them was when I was first admitted to USC as an undergrad, I was placed in the Latino Hispanic residential floor without asking. Like they just placed me there. And I don't really know why. It could have been random. It could have been because I checked off that I'm Latina. I don't know. But when that happened, my parents were like, "Oh no, you have to get out. Like no, you have to switch immediately." And I was like, "Okay, yeah, I'll do that." But that was just like something, the messaging that they've given me throughout my entire childhood. They were just like, don't overemphasize being Latina. That's something that should be like under the radar. Like they just didn't really want me to bring too much attention to it growing up. And I never really questioned. I was just like, okay, like that's fine. So when we learned about that like bicultural orientation model, like in assimilation, I was like, there's language for this. I had no idea. So that really like resonated with me and prompted me to like do some self-reflection. Like at first, like there was a part of me when I was in college that I was like, oh my God, that was internal racism. My parents just hated themselves. But now I'm like, no, maybe it wasn't just that, maybe a little bit of that, but there was some other, like they just really wanted the best for me and they wanted me to be successful in the way that they know the best at that time. So that was really moving for me writing this. The other one was being a woman. The other part that another thing that someone said in class, I think it was America that said it about how being a leader and a woman and a mom, even though I'm not a mom, but as a woman, she has to like soften her approach. And that's something that I recognize in myself as well with like, especially white male senior leaders, like VPs. I find myself just softening myself or being a little bit more feminine around them or offering extra help. And I'm like, ew, why do I do that? Like, why do I do that? That's just for a while, I'm just like, I thought that was me being a team player, being cooperative. I don't think that's right. So still ongoing and learning. And then the third one I picked was being first gen American. I just remember, like, you know, my parents are immigrants and they didn't know what a FAFSA was. They didn't know how to help like do any of that stuff. So I constantly found myself trying to use my own resources, going to the library. I relied heavily on, like what you were saying, Ernest, just finding the help, like my guidance counselors and things. So I just realized like that's just the mindset I had about continuing to learn and being there for myself, and which so that made me think of self authorship. And honestly, like I think the biggest takeaway is that in my role, especially like as a person and in my role in HR, I've always had the mentality of like find commonalities with other people, and that's my way to gain trust. But I think maybe that's not always the right thing to do. Like maybe it's just like we are all different. We're not all going to have shared experiences, and that's okay. Like that's fine too. Like that's kind of the point, right? We need to embrace those differences. So anyway, I really liked it. It was hard, but it was fun.
I'm so proud of you, friend. And there's a tie-in. First gen, you are coached to be assimilate to mainstream. Black people understand that very well. Very, like, very, very well. And I've always admired the Mexican community when I came to California because the authenticity and most of the, I was like, man, do they see this as a privilege? Like, do they know? They know the privilege of like being able to show up, being, you know, multilingual, so on and so forth. Like Laura hearing you say that is like, oh man, like our generation of parents, Gen X and the boomers, really must have been harmed by oppression to like really think that we were in danger and need to build our entire identity around making other people comfortable.
Mhm.
You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Then a part of us wants to honor that because we don't want to disrespect our parents, right? But I don't know, friend, that just came to mind, the reflection. I'm so proud of you.
Mhm. I like your biggest takeaway. And I remember we had, you mentioned this in the conversation that we had about not being solely seen as like a person of color, and how you're like, how like our families were like, you have to expand or almost in a weird way separate yourself. And you're like, but aren't I a part of that community and culture as well? And there's just still like some portion of you that has that connection to them, but then they want you to assimilate to Western standards. So you start to kind of act in a way that's like not necessarily who you are. And for me, I'm like the little black sheep of my family, probably on both sides. And at first I was like, I don't know what that means. But then like when I went to college and started doing more research into how people identify black people, I'm like, you realize that's not being black. Like what you're saying is not being black. Like if a black person comes up to me and says, I'm talking white, does that mean you're talking stupid? Like, you know what I mean? Like if talking white means that you're speaking intelligent, then what's the opposite of that? So it's because I've heard that before, but it's like it's interesting when you sit back and you're like, aren't I part of this community as well? Why can't I have both? Like my intersectionality, I'm operating both at the same time, but now I have to assimilate to all the other things that I'm supposed to be involved in society.
Code switching is exhausting. Actually, I'm guilty of the oh friend, you sound real proper. And I had to reflect on that. And what I was really saying was, you know, you're supposed to take your mask off when we're together. Like, I know we're at work, but I'm gonna need you to take. And then I realized, like, oh wait, we are we are not a monolith. Like, we are educated. we like me saying you're speaking proper, or you sound like the white man, was really me prioritizing them by saying, like, as if we aren't educated and come from different dialects. Yeah, like it took me this long to get there, but the trauma behind that when your own community, starts to, but I'm gonna tell you, California, this was so hard to me adjust to for me to adjust to. Like not having black and brown spaces where, like, in the South we love segregation. I'm not gonna hold you. We're safe in our communities, we're educated in our communities, leave us alone. We'll see you when we see you in the economy. Like, leave us alone. When I came to California, I was like, oh, where do you retreat to? Like like advising my students, I was like, well, oh, you don't have a Black community center. Okay. Also, you said you're Mongolian. Okay, well, yeah, we don't have like I don't know of a third space for that. Like, Southeast, it was, very easy to identify. Oh, friend, you need to go down to International Boulevard. There's a such and such community center or a church. Let's pick out some activities. It's here for queerness. It's easy to identify those third spaces, right? But us being all brown and black, like hearing our positionality and how much of our community of roots, like, really informs our reflections at this point of our education career. Shout out to the trauma. Shout out, because when you get rejected by your own community, that shit hurts. It hurts. Even though now I don't care. I just be like,
Sometimes that rejection though is needed, because sometimes what they're rejecting you from are like mental illnesses. And that's what I reflected on with like just my community and my family.
oh, we ain't gonna
Like,
tell you we don't accept no mental illness. No, you need to
no,
push
they're like,
through.
oh,
Yeah.
I used to hear like, oh, you think you better than us? And I was like, what?
I
And
mean,
this is coming from my aunts,
but
right? Like I have 4 aunts, and it's like when I reflect on them, I'm like, y'all have trauma, emotional distress, y'all single mothers, raised in a time frame where women were definitely supposed to assimilate and definitely had to take care of the man. So because I chose not to be that type of woman, where I went to school, I'm not male centered, stuff like that. I mean, none of them were really like they chose not to marry because they didn't want to be that, but I chose to do more than what they did. That was like the
which
response.
is how it's supposed to work. Like,
Right.
why did y'all put in all this effort for me to have to like backslide and continue the chain, like the
Mhm.
ball and chain? Like, wasn't the purpose of you working hard and you persisting? Like, think about how many hundreds of thousands of ancestors you had who had to survive to have children for you to even be here. What was the purpose of them doing all that?
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? Like, now Gen Z, we're just gonna exclude. Like, I can't wait for Gen Z to get to the doctoral level. We're just gonna separate. We're gonna put them over here. It's a whole nother experience, and we're gonna honor that experience. And I honestly think, Erica, millennials and Gen X, we might be the last generation to have these type of conversations. And I'm kind of happy for it. I'm kind of
Yeah.
glad for it. But it means we may not be as closely connected. They may not see us as community.
I
Yeah.
think the new generation is going to be a little bit disengaged from like reality on some levels, because I can see it now.
They're
Like,
they're identifying as mainstream. Like, they're,
yeah.
you know what I'm saying? Like, the niche parts of our culture, it's hard for them to connect to because that's not what's seen on the
Hmm.
media, social media they're consuming.
Hmm.
But almost like it's not your fault.
Yeah.
You don't have Black entertainment television. You don't have Univision. You don't have, do you know what I'm saying? Like, it's not really your fault.
I'm proud of all of us.
Agreed, and we made it.
We did. We made it.
And Laura, think of yourself more and speak up. We love it.
Recording in progress.
Welcome back, everyone. Everyone had a chance to share your content of your paper, right? So, all right. So we have a few minutes left. Do you have any highlights that you want to share with the whole class about either your presentation or your classmates, your breakout mates presentations? Anything that stands out to you? Dana, go ahead. Your group had a really, rich discussion around your.
Yes, we did. And I'm sorry, DeAndre, sorry, friend, I'm going to put you on a blast. But I won't share too much because that's yours to share. But can I just say DeAndre is amazing. And the parallels to a lot of the things that we've heard about each other, because we've all had a chance to be in groups with one another, it just really resonated with so many students that confide in me, or students that are dealing with certain issues. Okay, I don't get emotional, but I really enjoyed your presentation, DeAndre, because there's so many students, young students, who would really benefit from your work. And it is so necessary and it's so needed. And I'm saying this as a higher ed professional and dealing with some of the things that I deal with now. I hope that you continue to share just how you got to this point to where you are. We had a really great conversation. And yeah, so I didn't cry, but yeah. Thank you for sharing that.
Could you share a few highlights of what DeAndre said? Either you, Dana, or DeAndre, you can share like some.
I feel like I want DeAndre to, but I don't.
I want to hear it. You can go through all of that and then I'll share some highlights.
Well, okay, so one, thank you. I actually didn't realize how much I needed that today, so thank you for that. I shared with my group that I felt like this probably was the most impactful assignment that I feel like I've done in this program, largely because of the through line and connection to each of the theories that I referenced and how it related to my personal experience. Um, so I shared a little bit about the um, intersections of race and ethnicity and experiences of being sort of the only in certain spaces, and just the value of representation in that space as an educational leader, and wanting to model um, what it looks like to attain that level of sort of leadership in institutions that don't always celebrate Black and Brown experiences, much less queer experiences. Um, and then also just thinking a little bit about the intersection of social class in that. And like I lived in this duality in my household of my father being like middle class and my mom being a part of the working class. And so at her home, there was always a question about food on the table, lights on, where we were going to live. And at my dad's, that was like not the case. So all of those things I feel had me reflect on Yoso and just thinking about how there's so much capital that I had working against me in a lot of ways, or lack of wealth in a social context. Or I guess in certain contexts, I would say there was a little bit of a deficit, but I would say in other spaces, those um, experiences of adversity were the things that actually helped me to um, really build the social capital, and the aspirational and navigational components are sort of what have led me to where I am now. So just a lot of humility, I guess, in recognizing that, and just the responsibility that I think I feel going through this program to actively make sure that people like me, and students like me and colleagues like me have like space and place to do meaningful work. So that's sort of what keeps me going. And I
And
really appreciate everyone in this group and in this cohort. It's very, very sweet. So thank you.
And really quick, Dr. Min, I'm so sorry just to interject. The reason why I brought it up was because there's things happening currently with students who they're dropping out. And I was saying DeAndre had adversities, and look at where he's here. He could have chose other pathways, or he could have just said, you know what, this isn't for me. But I said that to say, because I spend a lot of time trying to build students up, because they're just being torn down by whatever circumstances they're going through. And his story is something that I would love to share with my students. So that's why I brought it up, because I'm like, I'm dealing with a situation right now, and I would love for DeAndre to just talk to the students.
Yeah, that's the power of being a role model and being an example, and also qualitative research, and also like tying it to more evidence based practices and theories, and we talked about, and such a powerful stories that you all have. And that's, I think, a nice way to end our course, right? To just keep on fighting on, everybody, and making a positive influence, and based on something powerful like solid foundations in theories and practice. Okay, so thank you, everybody. Because of the time, I'm going to end our class here. Please don't forget to turn in all your assignments by next Tuesday. And if you haven't had a chance to do your course evaluation, please do so. Yeah, I don't have anything else. And I wanted to say that it's been a while since I taught a summer course, and of course, this late, it's no one really liked the timing of the class. But I wanted to say that I really enjoyed teaching all of you. So much so that I want to teach this again class over the summer next time. So thank you for making, me a person who really want to like teach, regardless of the course timing, class timing, and it really was enjoyable. And thank you for being, such a hardworking and critically reflecting practitioners and future scholars. So thank you, everybody, and don't be strangers. I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.